Hi guys, Togo here with a new video, and this video will be a PvP prediction video about the meta for 10.0.5, at least for the mid-season, because this is a mid-season patch. And I'm actually excited about this patch. There is a lot of changes. The meta has been shifted, and I'm going to predict the meta for this Tuesday, Wednesday, and I will probably make a tier list video once the meta has settled, and we are going to do a finalized version of this tier list. Now, this tier list will be more based about solo shuffle than 3v3 because most people are playing solo shuffle, so this will also be written in the title. But I'm actually very excited about the changes. I'm very excited about the data that we have for the beginning of season 1. And now with the mid-season, I think the two metas are going to converge into one great thing. Now, timestamps below, you will also see the classes, so you can jump from classes to class, and you can also go back and watch that class. I'm going to preface, I'm not going to rate tanks because I do not have the knowledge to rate tanks into a specific tier. I feel like it's something that maybe someone can make it work as a brewmaster, but I feel like me not playing versus tanks just gives me no knowledge against those specs. So for me, it's going to be a tank tier, and I hope you can forgive me about that. We're going to try to make it also a bit shorter than normal tier lists, because again, I have a lot to say, but I think there is also a world where we still need to play in that meta to actually understand and feel what the specs are going to be like. Now let's start right away with decays. We are not going to judge blood decays, but we do judge frost decay. Now frost decays, they got a bit hit because of unholy decay mostly. I'm going to show you. Death Strike is no longer reduced in PvP combat, but the improved one is still. Enfeeblement, which is more for Unholy, it's something that Frost Decay sometimes can do, but it is very random. It could also just not give you the damage reduction. Rune of Spell Warding was pretty big for Frost Decay because it was either Rune of Spell Warding or you would go for the Strangulation. Now, since this is nerfed to the Oblivion, which is a good thing because passive reduction, passive whatever, is actually just bad for the game. I feel like every defensive should be active because it could give you some clutch moments where you're going to use it at specific moments. It's going to like make you survive, but it would be very good for the game to actually have some agency towards that. Like Rune of Spell Warding is pretty much you take it as a PvP talent and you forget about it. But now it's going to get nerfed, so basically you're not going to take Rune of Spell Warding. So Frost Decay got nerfed because of that. And also the cast speed reduction was pretty OP versus casters. Now it is also reduced by 33%. And Unholy Decay got nerfs, but that we are going to talk about it once it's Unholy Decay time. So Frost Decay got nerfed. The damage is still the same. I feel like they do crazy damage, and they do have a great comp, which is with a Devastation Evoker. But in Solo Shuffle, the coordination is very abysmal. They will often do a deep breath without you doing a blind, for example, or they're doing a deep breath on like a single target instead of like whenever you're regrouping the enemies together. So I feel like you cannot really count on that. In 3v3, it can be very good. But again, it's a solo shuffle prediction, not a 3v3 prediction. So for me, it is going to be a C tier spec. Although I play myself Frost Decay, I'm like 2k MMR right now. I think it's a very, very good and fun spec to play, although very one-dimensional. Often you have to go for the healer, or you decide to regroup them because it's a cleave, and you can actually go for the DPS. But after that, they're not dumb, and they're not going to stay together. So chill streaks are a bit abysmal with those adversaries, I would say. So it's a C tier spec. Unholy Decay, with the nerfs, I'm going to predict that they are going to still be strong, but they're going to be like DHs, where they're not going to be like the alpha male anymore. They're going to probably still win versus casters because, again, they have a lot of great things like AMS, like AMZ, Strangulation now instead of Rune of Spell Warding, because they will choose that over Rune of Spell Warding now. You can also still play Rune of Spell Warning if you feel like you're still dying a bit too quickly, and it will be reduced, but it will still be alright. So you have the option to still take it, although I would probably never take it since it's like nerfed to the abyss, I would say. So for me, it's going to be an 8-tier spec because I'm thinking about the meta and how I think I will shape the meta. Not how I will, but how Blizzard shaped the meta. I think Unholy Decay still has a place, especially in Social, where Chaos being doing a lot of damage, a lot of pad damage, is actually kill damage most of the time because healers cannot keep up. And Unholy Decays is probably one of the bigger winners with the stamina changes because, again, DKs have more health, and if you give more stamina to DKs, it will just scale way better than, let's say, if you give that stamina to a Fire Mage, for example. So Havoc Demon Hunter will be still 8 tier in my books. People are still crying about nerfs and whatever. I'm not playing DH, by the way. I do hate DH. I'm a caster. Every time I play a DH versus a DH, it's a miserable like existence for myself. But I feel like DH is not as strong as before. It does sometimes do crazy damage, and then sometimes it does no crazy damage. It depends on how often you actually root the DH, how often you actually peel the DH off, which is possible. Although the mobility makes it a lot harder, you have tools to actually do that. And I feel like DHs, they are a bit less than DKs. And with the current meta where I'm thinking how it's going to be, I think DH will still be strong, but they will get countered by specific specs, which are going to be probably better than DH right now. Balanced Druid. For me, Balanced Druid got changed pretty substantially. I think it's quite good. Socrates was a bit not mad, but he told like, why would you nerf the damage from Orbit Breaker in PvP? It's 20% less, but he forgot that here it's written that it is doing 20% more damage, so it will be balanced. It will do the same damage whenever you have Orbit Breaker, but if you're like speccing into new moon, half moon, full moon, you will do more damage regardless. So it's not a nerf, it's actually just a balancing way to actually not make Orbit Breaker OP, but just make it as strong as right now. Because if they didn't change that, it would be an Orbit Breaker full moon at 100% value right now, which is not going to be the case because they did adjust it before they actually put the 20% increased damage for full moon. So again, it's not a nerf. Star Surge doing more damage, although it's like a nerf on the Touch of the Cosmos. I think it's a good thing because it will do more damage at all times, while Touch of the Cosmos is a proc, if I'm not mistaken. So it's not always you're going to have the 20% increased damage or the 35% increased damage. So I think it's a huge thing. Same for Wrath, Starfire doing more damage. I saw on a PTR someone do 100k Starfire, which is actually very good. I think if there is really a possibility to do that in arenas, it will actually be very nice. Now it depends on how they are going to balance it. But overall, it's a buff. Like Balance Root got a buff. I think in Soul Shuffle they are not bad. I think they are a bit worse in 3v3. And just because of that, I'm going to put it in B tier. B tier means good for me. S tier is like the god tier, the over the meta. A tier is meta. B tier is good. C tier is underpowered, and D tier means that it's garbage. So that's pretty much my tier list, so you actually understand. Now, Feral Druids. Feral Druids got nerfed and got I would say, if you're looking at the changes that they're actually doing, they're like nerfing a lot of things towards the rip damage, towards the rake damage and such. It's not as bad as people would say. People are saying like you get nerfed over nerfed, but I think there is a place where you could change it into a Ferocious Bite Feral Druid, which probably is more fun as well, in my books. I'm thinking if there is like a PvP change, but I think there is no PvP change on this tier, on this list. The main thing is they're nerfing Rake Rip. They're nerfing a bit of a Ferocious Bite, although it's like again offset because of the buffs that you get. You have a nerf on Feral Frenzy. Pretty much you're nerfed on your whole bleed playstyle. Now, is it going to be enough to put it outside of the S tier? I think it is enough. I think it will still be A tier in Soul Shuffle because it is annoying to kill first and foremost, but also it is highly mobile. It has good CC with stuns, restuns. They could also just still spec Cyclone, although versus all the matches that you are facing with cleaves, I would say it is better to probably just stay with AoE rips and rakes. But for now, Feral Druids are going to be A tier. They will be a lot difficult to play because Frenzy Regeneration got nerfed. Now, I still think Feral Feral Druids are still going to be pretty strong after those changes. Guardian Druid, I'm not going to rate it. Restoration Druid got nerfed. Now, I still think it's still very strong. They got nerfed on their survivability, they also nerfed on budding leaves, and they are also nerfed on, let's say, the Verdancy, Adaptive Swarm, and Dream State got buffed. And if you're looking on the real, not the real PTR, but on the announcement that we're about to make for 10.5, you do get a few changes, like for example Nourish being able to like be increased and be stronger. I think there is a world where you could play Nourish. Depends on how mana efficient it is. I personally don't know, but I think it depends about your mastery and how you stack it and how much healing it actually is. If Nourish is so much better than Regrowth, I think there is a world where you're playing with Nourish instead of Regrowth. But for now, I think many people are playing with Tree of Life. I think going for a regrowth playstyle is probably the thing that is going to help you to actually survive most of the damage in Soul Shuffle. Although you will get if you spam regrowth. For me, it's still S tier. Again, very mobile, very good. It can just be a non-aggressive healer. They don't actually need to cyclone. They can cyclone if they want to, if they have time to, but they don't have to. And I think overall they are the best healer with Preservation Evoker. But I'm going to discuss about it a bit further on the line. Devastation Evoker, we saw a few changes. I think they are very strong right now. So before 10.0.5 again, and they got buffed on Disintegrate again, which is hitting very hard. I think people don't realize that Deep Breath and such, that's very good, but Disintegrate, sometimes you just get killed because of that, because they get procs on it and get surges, I think, if it's called like that. And it's actually very strong. Azure Strike is like a non-factor. I think most people are not going to do damage with that. But getting nerfs on Deep Breath is pretty big. But I think it's not enough to tone them down. I think in Soul Shuffle they are really a rising star. And for me, it is very close to the A tier. I know some people are putting it in A tier, but I still think about the meta and how how it would be shaped. And I think Evokers, like I think the Devastation Evokers, they're going to get mauled by the S tiers, and for me it is going to deserve the B tier. Preservation Evoker is going to be S tier. I think it's way too strong, doesn't get you don't have the same win conditions as, let's say, other healers. You can basically play laid back, or you can play super aggressive and still not be there is a world where you could be but you would be a lot further down the line than, let's say, a Holy Priest or Disc Priest or whatever healer you're actually placing. So I think it depends on, like I said, there's a multiple times, right? Depends on who you are and who you're facing and who you are as a class or spec. You would put Restoration Druid or Preservation Evoker ahead. For me, I'm playing like melees, and melees Restoration Druids are often very slippery and very annoying. Well, for example, Preservation Evoker, if they're doing Internal Communion, Emerald Communion, I'm going to just switch on him and he might just die because of that. So that's why I'm putting Restoration Druid ahead. BM Hunter, for me, it is one of the sleeper specs for 10.5. I think the 4-set is very good. The people that can raid and do Mythic and they can have the Legendary Bow, it is actually awesome. But me, myself, I'm not doing that, unfortunately. Fortunately, I prefer to do PvP. I think BM Hunters, they are very, very good. You will see a lot of them on the ladder, and the popularity just goes higher and higher, especially since MM is going to get nerfed to the Oblivion because of the changes. I think BM Hunter are going to rise onto the A tier, especially with the meta switches and the actual idea I have in my mind about BM Hunter. I think it's really a sleeper spec and hidden gem. People are actually not thinking that BM Hunters are doing like carry games, I would say. They just do. They are very strong. They can like trap in higher MMR. They don't break trap all the time, and they can also play just the ice trap, like the diamond ice trap, so you can actually not break it. Although the CC is a bit shorter, but it is actually at least guaranteed. Like for example, a cyclone. I think it's very strong. It is on the move, always mobile. The pets die, but Feraldurus got nerfed, so that's also a correlation between that. And Holy DKs also got nerfed. So again, the specs that are actually nerfed are actually beneficial for the BM Hunter. Although BM Hunter has no real changes, it will just put them a bit higher because of that. Survival Hunter, I think the same as BM Hunter. Since Feral Druids got getting nerfed, a lot of like cleave damage is getting nerfed. Like for example, even Devastation on their Deep Breath is getting nerfed. I think the pets are going to survive a bit longer, and just because of that, I really want to put it in A tier because it is very strong if you're playing it correctly. But I'm thinking about the average Joe that is actually playing Survival Hunter, and kind of drags it down because it is a very hard spec to play and hard spec to survive. If you're playing BM Hunter and then you play Survival Hunter, it feels a bit harder to actually just survive because the mobility and the range and the actual kite ability of the class is a bit different. So for me, it's going to be B tier, but really on the edge of A tier. It is very good spec. If you're like thinking about big mechs, you might even put it in S tier, for example. But I need to think about the average 2k MMR, for example, that is playing Survival Hunter. Are they going to survive or die? Mostly they're going to have difficulties to actually survive the damage, and for me it is just because of that it's B tier. But the pet surviving more damage because of the EOE getting toned down will help them immensely. Also, they got a buff on the Roar of Sacrifice. I'm going to show you right now. It will deal 10% of the damage to the target suffers to the pet instead of 20%. So it will be also better to actually do a Roar of Sacrifice. Hunter, I'm going to put it in D tier. I might be too over dramatic. I'm going to test the changes once it's live because I play Hunter, so it is a small test for me. But I feel like without double tap, you will have some difficulties to secure kills. Although there is a world where you could play without double tap and still have success. But in my books, I think the town setups that they have is not optimal. I think it's not great. There is no real choices that you can make. It's you will have to play salvo pretty much. It's the only thing that you can play, and will be maybe the only thing that can save you because of the cleave damage. If there are 2 minis on you, you do the salvo like explosive shot thingy with multi shots. You're going to cleave them and maybe obliterate them with that. But again, it's really counting on the healer not dispelling. You can just dispel that. So I don't know. If you're playing versus the Holy Paladin, for example, he can just do a judgment and everything is dispelled. So I don't know. Depending on the enemies you're facing, of course. If you're facing versus an Affliction Warlock, you should not play Judgment of the Pure, but it is still something that you can do, right? So that's why I think it's not in a good place, and it's looking like they're going to probably change it a bit further down the line with a hotfix. But they're removing a ability, and I don't remember them actually adding a new ability since the Dragonflight coming out, right? As a patch, as a hotfix, I don't remember them actually adding something. It would have been good if double tap was actually a PvP talent. Then actually you have the option to talent in. Until they fix that, but for now it is not possible, so I'm very afraid for you guys, the Hunters. Arcane Mages, they got nerfed on the execute. That's pretty much it. Now since DKs got nerfed, DH is nerfed since previous patch. Feraldurus is getting nerfed as well. I feel like there is a world where Arcane Mages are still going to be A tier, I think ahead of BM Hunter. I'm going to order it at the end of the video with melees, casters and then healers. So you have a good indication on how I actually rate those specs. But I think in general, arcane mages are going to be still great. I think there will be a world where you might not play with the execute talent, and maybe you would play with something else. It depends. I'm not really an arcane mage enthusiast. I don't really know what they could build. But there's a world where you could not play with the arcane barrage, like the execute on arcane barrage. Now I think there is still a world where you will play it, because it's still very nice to have an execute effect, and also just it can stack, so it will do still a lot of damage. If you can just crit one, it's pretty much GG's. They do get benefit for the stamina changes, because they do survive a long time. They have mobility to actually help that. But we will have to see what is going to happen with arcane mages. Fire mage, they got a damage buff, pretty much like 5%. I think it's still not enough. It's not about the damage. I think it's pure about the survivability. They still have the fire mages nerfed, like since Shadowlands, on their blazing barrier. I think it's just not enough. It's just not enough. I think if they actually did a like unnerf from Shadowlands, it would be stronger. They also again miss blazing barrier, where you, whenever you're blinking, you get a barrier. I don't know how it's called anymore. That's something that they are actually missing. It's something that they had, and pretty much made them a bit more tanky. Now they removed it. I love mages not being tanky, but they didn't really have a compensation on it, on damage or utility or mobility or whatever. They have to actually talent a lot of things out to get the mobility, which is not really the easiest thing to do. I just think fire mages are just a worse version of arcane mage right now. You can probably still make it work, but arcane mage is just better. It's easier. It's mobile. It's survival. Like their survival is a lot higher. So for me, it's going to be a C tier spec. I'm not going to put it D tier, because for me it's not garbage. I think it just has the problem with the comparison with arcane mage. If arcane mage didn't exist, I think it would be B tier, for example. But right now, if you have to compare them to, which you have to, because you have to compare with range specs, they're just suffering from the comparison. Frost mages, for me, it's going to be a A tier spec. Again, people are still focused on the glacial spike build, but you need to understand that you can just play the Icelands build, not play around the glacial spike, still have the mastery being useful for your icicles, and still do a lot of damage on the move. I think people are just still liking the like 200k one shots on glacial spikes, which is the thing that is actually hard to do in Soul Shuffle, because people can just mini CC you or interrupt you or whatever, or you have to blow Shimmer multiple times to actually go away to get a glacial spike, but then you have no mobility anymore. For me, it's a bit cheesy. I like cheese, but if you want to be competitive, I think you would have to think about the Icelands build. And in general, you're going to be as strong, if not stronger, with that build. So for me, Frost Mages with this current meta is going to rise a bit, because DKs are going to get nerfed, DH is nerfed, Feral Druids is nerfed, is gonna get nerfed, by the way, sorry. And in general, you're going to have a great time. Now, you will see a rise of arms warriors, for example, and assassination rogues and such. You as a Frost Mage, you have the possibility to actually kite that. It's not like unkiteable minis. It's not like a DK that has a disadvance. And the anti-root mobility spell, I don't know how it's called anymore. I play DK, by the way. But they have AMS, they have AMZ, so it will become a bit harder to actually like kite them. But now that DKs are getting nerfed, you will be facing a lot less of them, and you will probably rise a bit better. But BM Hunter can keep them in check, so you have to be careful on the rise of BM Hunters and see what they are going to do for the Frost Mages. I think Frost Mages is really close to B tier though, and Arcane Mages is just like really close to S tier, so you have to think about like that aspect. So for me, Frost Mages is probably the least best A tier spec. Mistweaver, I think in social it's still going to be a B tier spec, or I mean C tier spec, excuse me. It is underpowered because you have to be fist weaving. They are actually encouraging you to actually play fist weaving. But with this current meta that you will be facing with Arms Warrior, for example, with Retribution Paladins still going to be strong, Windwalker still being strong, I think for a Mistweaver, being melee, it is going to be wild. It is going to be very hard to actually exist. And just because of that, I think it's going to be C tier. I think their throughput is good whenever they have the smart heals being smart. But if the smart heal is not really smart, then it becomes very hard, because if you heal a full heal target and you have to heal that one target that has 20% health HP, it becomes a bit iffy. So for me, it's not reliable right now. I wish it was stronger. In beginning of the season, it was actually one of the best healers, but now I don't know. I think there is something off. Maybe they over-nerfed something, or something got overlooked. But Mistweaver is just not strong anymore. Windwalker. I think it is the meta for Windwalker. They're meta. They're not god tier because it's very hard for them to be god tier. But they do wreck the melees that are currently good. Like Arms Warrior, they're going to have difficult times versus Windwalker, because if you're actually like attacking and doing your big damage on a Fist of Fury, you're going to have zero value, because sometimes it can just happen whenever you're doing a Colossus Smash and he does Fist of Fury, well, it got parried. Or you're doing a big Morph Strike, it got parried. Or they're going to do Touch of Karma at the right time, shit out of luck. So for me, it's going to be like an 8 tier spec. It is going to be very strong versus, let's say, Arms or Holy DKs, DH, Feral Druids. They will have difficulties versus Causes regardless, because they can be kited, they can be annoying to deal with. They can also still lose versus melees. It's pretty much a skill matchup. So if you're doing a Fist of Fury into nothing, you will suffer a lot of damage. You have to think about the Fist of Fury as a defensive and an offensive, and just because of that, I think they deserve the 8 tier spot. But I would say on the lower end, they will probably be around between the DH and the Feral Druids, and I think it's a good spec. I think many people are still going to play it. It's still going to be very strong. I think it is just now harder to actually do one-shots, which is good. I think a one-shot should be rare to do, and not like every game. So it's going to be a bit more fun to play against and with. Holy Paladin, they got like semi buff. I don't know. They're getting buffed on, like, let's say, casted abilities like Flash of Light and Holy Light as well. If I'm like here correct. Also Holy Shock a bit. So you have some ways to do some good healing. They got also changed on their wings on how that works. I'm going to show you. So basically, Avenging Crusader now costs 5 holy power, so it will not cost mana anymore. And reduce cooldown to 45 seconds instead of 2 minutes, and it will be a duration of 12 seconds. And you can, of course, proc it from your talent. Now, is it going to be very strong? I don't know. It's a redesign. It's pretty difficult to know. Blessing of Winter can help you with your mana problems, but you'll have to cycle blessings, and sometimes you will not have Blessing of Winter whenever you actually really need it. So it's a bit difficult. You will have more healing in general. You will have some ways to be better. So for me, just because of that, and especially in Social, where CDs versus the metas, which is Arms Warrior, for example, Bobs and such, are going to be clutch. Now you're still going to die pretty quickly, but you have a change on your Divine Protection being a 30% DR, which is better than 20%. So that's also a good reason to maybe start playing a Holy Paladin. So for me, this is going to be a 8 tier spec. They're going to be very close to the S tier. Remember, I'm going to do melee ranged healer, so it doesn't mean that it's like at the end that it becomes like worse. It just means that it is behind healers. Protection Paladin, not going to rate it. Retribution Paladin, they got changed. People say that it got shafted, but it really didn't. Final Reckoning got like a retcon. I said it multiple times already, that 20% just got removed from the patch from before. So pretty much you're going to be still strong with your Final Reckoning. There is still a world where you're still going to play with Final Reckoning, but the thing that you probably will opt out is Radiant Decree. But again, I think Wake of Ashes is a great alternative. It is still going to be a lot of damage, but it has no modifiers because it is not a holy power spender. But I still think it's going to be strong. So you will have to see that Wake of Ashes, if you're playing with Ashes to Wake or whatever, I don't know how it's called. Ashes to Dust, excuse me, where you actually get like procs from Wake of Ashes. If it procs often, you're going to do a lot of damage, and whenever it doesn't, like, it is going to be still doing damage, but a bit less. It's also very good for actually regenerating your holy power, especially for your procs. And I think it is going to be very good. Final Verdict getting buffed and Temporary Verdict being buffed will make it stronger than GVs. And in general, since you're playing with Healing Hands, you don't really need GVs anymore. It's also going to getting buffed. You get buffed on Flash of Light, getting buffed on your Healing Hands, you're getting buffed on your Divine Protection, and I think people will now play with Divine Protection instead of Shield of Vengeance. Exorcism getting buffed, which is actually hitting alright, but now it's going to hit more, so I think it's going to be a very good thing. Crusader Strike going to have a bit more damage, although it's very filler, it is going to be more worth to press. And overall, they're not going to be losers. I think they will become better with this patch. I really think it becomes better. I think it will just be less bursty, which is a good thing, but the consistency and the ability to actually kill people outside of your burst is going to be more likely. So for me, just because of that, I think it will be a B tier spec, which is good. It's a good spec. B tier is good. It is not bad. I again reiterate, it is a good spec. Now, Disc Priest. Disc Priest is the surprise healer. They got a lot of changes. I'm going to put it in A tier for now, but I'm going to discuss why. They have lots of changes. Now you can have double pain suppression, which is big for Soul Shuffle especially. Solace doing overall more damage. It seems like it's a nerf, but it is not a nerf. It will do more damage. You have some fun ways to have a shadow spell on penance, basically, and to be also be able to cast on the allies. I think it's not really the playstyle you're will go for. I think the playstyle around the holy spells like Power Word Solace is going to be much better. But one thing I'm very excited about is Harsh Discipline. It can trigger from Solace and Mind Blast in addition to Smite. So basically you don't have to open up your Smite and your Holy School to actually get kicked for the Harsh Discipline. Now you can really just do Mind Blasts, Power Word Solace, and basically have a guaranteed Harsh Discipline proc, which is very, very good. Again, we have also another change here. We can just watch again. Priests. Where are the priest changes? I think it's a bit higher. The priest changes are very, very nice. If you're looking at, you get more flash healing, flash heal, although you're not spamming it, it's always welcome. Renew doing more healing, I guess it's free, why not? What is good is about the Power Word Radiance doing 100% more healing, and Ultimate Radiance will do only 10%. But basically, you don't really need the PvP talent anymore. Now, you can basically play without it. It will be a cast time, but if you're stacking haste, it is going to be alright. And again, you don't want to spam Radiance. And whenever you want to do Radiance, it is actually like a heal that you don't have the option to not do it. Like, for example, in AoE situations. But I think it will open up a PvP talent, which again, PvP talents as this priest is actually very interesting. Sins of the Many, again, more damage. Pretty nice, pretty neat. And Divine Aegis getting nerfed is a non-factor on this tier list. For me, it's going to be better than Disc Priest, Holy Paladin, and it's going to be very close to the Restoration Druids and Evokers. Don't forget, Discipline Priest can purge a lot of things from those two classes, and if you're doing it correctly, you will have a lot of healing, and a lot of healing prevented because of that spec. Holy Priest, I think it's B tier. It's not bad, but I think excuse me, it has some difficulties with surviving. They have a lot of ways to actually heal correctly for a burst moment, but whenever you have to do like longer matches where you're going to get kicked eventually, you're going to have a bad time. You will have to cast at one point, and whenever you have to, and the enemies knows that, they can just switch on you and basically kick every single thing on you. I think it's just not as strong as Disc Priest. They do get some buffs here and there, but I think in general it's not going to be the best priest healing spec. I think Disc Priest is just going to be more safe and more better in general with double pain suppression, which is something that a lot of specs will need in Soul Shuffle to actually survive. Disc Priest will be able to do that and offer that to these classes and specs. Shadow Priest, I think with this current meta, it is still going to be very strong, but I think it's... I want to put it in A tier because I know it's stronger, but people just play a bit less on Shadow Priest. But I think for me it is still a bit better than Frost Mage, a bit worse than PM Hunter. It has ways to just carry games in Solo Shuffle with CC. Nothing new, really. I think Shadow Priest is one of those specs that are going to be always good, no matter how much damage they are actually doing or not. I think the CC that they can provide can win their games pretty substantially. Again, if you're using CC just to prevent your death, that's the moment where you're going to suffer. It's the same like rogues whenever they start blinding DPSs because they need to actually breathe. That's the moment where they're actually losing the game. So pretty much Shadow Priest A tier. I know that I will get some slack for it, but I'm thinking about a lot of situations where Shadow Priest can just win games even whenever they're focused because of the CC that they can apply to the healer. Now, Assassination Rogue. I think Assassination Rogue are getting nerfed and buffed at the same time. They do get a AoE Shiv, which is kind of insane, let's not lie. Now, the difficulty is they do get it, but I want to show you guys on the PTR. It's not as easy to get it because people are like talking about Shiv being like insta-pick, but it is not always the case. And this is not the PTR one. Please give me the PTR one. Okay, this is the PTR one. So I'm going to show you how difficult it is. So I'm going to do the specific build around Assassination Rogues, right? So basically you're playing with this, that, you have to play this. So if you wanna play basically around Shiv, like AoE Shiv, you will have to play this spec, right? And I'm going to show you the better spec in a moment. So you have this, and then you have opened up your way towards arterial precision, which gives you the AoE Shiv, tiny toxic blade, soul drake recipe, and an arterial precision. You could also just play like an ambush build if you really want to, but basically you will spend a lot more points into it. But what do you need now? Of course, you will need Serrated Bone Spike because it's one of those combo generators, but also damage. You have only 4 points left. So basically, you will have to basically take this into Poison Bomb, and that's it. You will probably take Shrouded Suffocation, that's it. So basically you will have no Dragon Tempered Blades, no Kingsbane. You will only have an AoE Shiv, which is good because it is a 20% increased damage on bleeds. That's very fine. But bleeds, again, it's not the same value as, let's say, 4 poisons or Kingsbane doing insane damage at one point of the game. You're going to sacrifice a lot of things to take this. I feel like it is just not as strong as people would think and believe. You can maybe sacrifice those 2 points, why not, to get this, but you cannot ever take Dragon Tempered Blades, like ever. You'll have to take something away again to get those two together. But the problem is you will have no Shrouded Suffocation, you will have no Serrated Bone Spike, you might not have Doomblade, you might not have Exsanguinate, you will not have something interesting. So you will have to sacrifice a lot of things. So I don't know if it's going to be any good to play around that. It could be the new build where you're going to just ignore Shrouded Suffocation, which is basically again a Garrote modifier, or you're not going to play with serrated bone spike, which I feel like it's a mistake to not play with that. But this build is not for me S tier material, not even A tier material. I think it's a straight nerf towards the playstyle of rogues. I think it's still going to be strong because I think you can still play the normal builds, I would say. So you have 2 points like more to spend, so you can play either with again fatal concussion and maybe exsanguinate, or you can play with tiny toxic blade if you like the damage on shiv, or you can maybe play somewhere else. You can play the internal bleeding, which is also quite nice, quite like damage wise. But you have a lot of ways to actually improve your damage, but you have to sacrifice things. So for me, just because of that and this start, for me, it is not going to be strong as people would say. The AoE Shiv is maybe something good versus Cleaves, but you have to sacrifice so much personal things to get at that really you're going to play a support DPS whenever you're taking that. So for me, it is going to be low-ish A tier, but really low. It could be B tier for me. I think it's like an overall nerf just because of the talent switches that they're actually doing. Yes, there are a few things that are actually quite nice. Like for example, all rogues get feint, so you don't really have to talent into feint anymore. So you have an easier time to get elusiveness or cheat death. So there is that. You also reduce duration of movement slowing effects, which is always nice to have as well. But I don't know if it's going to be that much stronger. So for me, it is going to be a 8 spec. Outlaw rogues are getting buffed and nerfed at the same time. Killing Spree will do 35% damage reduction, so you have some ways to actually outplay that. I think it's going to be B tier, and the same for Sabati Rogue. They are niche specs that are going to be played and going to be good at times. They are not the best specs though, so I would say Outlaw Rogues is probably Outlaw Rogues is probably better than Subtlety, and Subtlety is probably one of the worst specs out of the B tier because they will just be able to carry games. Excuse me, I'm going to put it in C tier, man. I just think the nerfs on the damage are substantial. The stamina changes are not good for the Subtlety Rogues because they want to actually finish games faster. No, it's going to be a C tier spec. I think Frosty K is even like a bit worse than Subtlety Rogue, but in general, you're going to have a tough time as a sub rogue. And Outlaw Rogue is something that is not played, but it's actually very good, and you should just not underestimate that DPS. I just think it's just underplayed because people don't like to play it, or people prefer to play Assassination or Subtlety, so it's very difficult to have a straight idea about Outlaw. Elemental Shaman got nerfed. Now, I don't know if I can... Never mind, it doesn't matter. I wanted to show you guys the patch note, but whatever. Elemental Shaman gets nerfed on the 2 set, so halved, and they will basically have Primal Surge. That's the talent where you get like 25% increased lava burst damage. It is going to be nerfed by I think 25% or something like that. I don't know. It's going to get nerfed, but people are now playing with splintered master. Master or elements, I don't know, it's with the haste one, so it will not really annoy them too much. It will do a bit less damage on Earthshock, but I think still Elemental Shaman is the best caster in the game because the DKs are getting nerfed. DH is already nerfed from previously. Feral Druids are getting nerfed. Assassination Rogues, in my books, are getting nerfed. Retribution Paladins one-shots getting nerfed. So you have ways to actually counter it. I just think it is one of the best caster specs. They just counter other casters, and they counter the melee specs that are going to be meta. Right away, I'm going to talk about warriors really soon. So for me, Elemental Shaman is going to be one of those specs that are going to be still strong. They will do a bit less one-shots, but it will still do a lot of damage with Stormkeepers. Stormkeepers is unchanged. So basically, you will still do a 200k one lightning bolt Stormkeeper. So if you're doing 2, you're going to overkill someone. So again, and stamina changes is also very big for Elemental Shamans because it just makes them even more tanky with the percentage on Earth Elemental and their reincarnation talent, which basically gives them 8% more stamina. So it's going to be very, very good for them to actually survive damage. Enhancement Shaman, unchanged. Unfortunately, in Social Fall, you don't really choose your allies. I think in Trees it becomes better because Arms Warrior becomes better. But for me, it is going to be a C tier spec. It is very difficult to actually justify Enhancement Shaman. I do play Enhance. Sometimes I feel like I have a lot of agency. I can kill people, I can off heal people, but whenever they target me and I have to survive and I'm in survival mode, I use every single Maelstrom to actually heal myself. It becomes very hard to actually deal damage and to actually make them scared. You have some Ascendance, like play styles where you can play and actually kill people with it, but I think it's very greedy. And often not, if you want to kill someone, you have to be greedy as an enhancement shaman. And the good thing is their natural enemies got nerfed, so there is a way where you could be better. But right now, with no changes on the horizon for enhancement shaman, I feel like it's still going to be a C spec. Restoration shaman is going to be surprising. I think it's going to be in the top 5 of best healers. Now it's very difficult for me to actually judge them better or worse than Holy Paladin. I think it just depends if you're playing versus casters or if you're playing versus melees. If you're playing versus casters, I think Restoration Shaman is one of the best. But if you're playing versus melees, I think Holy Paladin is taking the cake. They could even be better than Restoration Druid and Preservation Evoker. But you cannot count on that. You have to make an average on you're playing versus mixed comps, you're playing versus caster comps, you're going to play with melee comps. What is the result? And I think Restoration Shaman is going to be good and better. With a crit build, you can actually do some substantial damage and substantial actual healing. But you have to remember that Restoration Shaman is actually prone to be targeted and they could just die because of that. So for me, it's going to be 8 respect, probably better than Holy Priest and a lot better than Mistweaver. Now we are in the meat and potatoes. Warlock and Affliction Warlock got changed multiple times. Overall, it is a nerf. I'm not going to talk about the latest changes really, but this is a big nerf. You can say whatever you want. It is more skillful though, but Soul Swap has been redesigned so it copies your damage over time effect from the target, preserving their duration, and your next use of Soul Swap within 10 seconds will exhale a copy of the effect onto a new target. The problem is, it is good in a dampening meta, but sometimes you just need to do damage right away, and this is not going to cut it. Also, you will not have a way to actually apply it directly, like the 3 dots. Now you will have to cast it and take your time to actually have some ramp up, which is good. So it means that they can actually like put like some damage on to other spells. But the thing I'm actually very excited is probably Malefic Rupture, but that's pretty much a conduit. So I don't know. I really don't know if it's going to be any good or not. I think Affliction Warlock is overall nerfed. Soul Tap being removed as well, so I don't know. I feel like Affliction Warlock is going to be a beater spec, especially in Social Fall. It is good. You're going to win some games just because of your sheer existence, but you can also just lose some games before you have even ramped up and put some dots on everyone, especially with the nerfs towards Soul Swap. So for me, it is going to be a B tier spec, probably between Devastation and Balance Druid. I think Devastation is probably the closest to A tier, while Affliction Warlocks and Boomy, they're not going to be that good. They're good, but they're not that good. Demonology Warlock, I think it's still a A tier spec. It is going to be A tier in my books, probably better than BM, but worse than Arcane. They have to play around Tyrant now. But the problem is with playing around Tyrant is that it is feared, stunned, whatever, rooted, and then just around the pillar. So I don't feel like it's going to be super good at higher MMR where people can realize, look, he's casting Tyrant. Let him cast Tyrant and just kite him, and that's it. Some people face tank it and they get critted for 50k. Well, it is what it is, but you have to play around Tyrant, and to stop Tyrant is a easy feat. But at lower elo, where people are not noticing Tyrants or Pit Lords or whatever, of course, Demonology Warlocks are going to run over you guys, or me even, on some specs where I'm really terrible. But if you're playing at the Warlock, you know that often not what they do is just kite your Tyrant. Until Demon Balls are something that you can press to do damage, right now Demon Balls are pretty much your regen on Soul Shards, and that's it. I hope there is a playstyle change that you could do as the Melody Warlock to actually be able to do damage by themselves, but we will see. Destruction Warlock for me is the second best caster, no surprise, I already said that multiple times. I think Destruction Warlock is surprisingly very good. They get buffed again, so the hidden gem will not be hidden anymore, it will just be a gem. So for me, it deserves the S tier spot. I think Elemental Shaman is just better. If you're facing Elemental Shaman as a Destruction Warlock, you do suffer because they have a Purge, they have Grounding Totem, they have Wind Shear on a 12-second CD where they can play with a PvP talent, and if they Wind Shear your Chaos Bolt, they get a DR for 15 seconds. For 12 seconds, about 50%. So it's going to be insane to actually play against. And I mean 15, not 50%. So 1-5. It is going to be really strong versus them. So it feels like Destruction Warlock is not as strong as Elemental Shaman, but you have to look also into different matchups versus casters versus melees. I feel like Destruction Warlock is one of those specs that are going to do very good, except versus Elemental Shaman, for example, or except versus Demon Hunters that can stop you every time. So it warrants for me the S tier spot. Now we talk finally about warriors. You know that on this channel we love them warriors. An advocate to have warriors as the S tier or meta spec. And for me, warriors are going to be very meta. Now, that's my prediction. It could be that warriors are going to get destroyed by elemental shamans and destruction warlocks where they're not going to exist in the S tier. But in my opinion, Arms Warrior with Ignore Pain, with the talent changes, like again, I'm going to show you guys the changes. It is actually insane. Now you can basically have Unhinged, you can have Sharpened Blades, Executioner's Precision, and you can have Fatality with Battle Lord. So you have all the great talents. You basically have this. I'm going to show you with my mouse. This. And even this. And then you have also some great talents, like for example, Overpower doing Rage Regen, which is insane. You should understand that it can just proc Tactician by itself. So it's going to be insanely good. You have, again, Bleeds doing more damage. You have Dragon Roar doing full damage in PvP now. Again, something that we didn't see in this current patch because it did 80% of attack power. Now it's going to be 160% attack power, and it's going to be even better with the talents with Thunderous Words and Uproar being finally a 1-minute CD. So you have a lot of ways to actually play your Arms Warrior, and I think for me it is the alpha male spec going into 10.0.5. I could be wrong, they could still nerf it, but for me Arms Warrior is going to be the meta-defining spec right now for this current mid-season. Fury Warriors, they got buffed on their damage, they got buffed on the Slaughterhouse, they got buffed on multiple things. Now, is damage enough? I don't know, because the force set is really terrible. You have to also take the force set into account. The force set has no value except if execute becomes so strong that you have to press it on demand. Right now, execute is pretty much you press it whenever you don't have rampage, or if whenever you don't have your bloodbaths, or if you're playing the bloodbath build, or the crushing blows if you're playing the crushing blow builds. So pretty much it's really a filler execute, or like a rage regen whenever you need that rampage. But if they make it as you want to really cast it on demand, then it becomes very strong. I think right now it is going to be a B tier spec. I'm very close to put it in C tier, but I'm thinking about the C tiers. And I think Fury is a bit worse than Outlaw, but a bit better than an enhancement Shaman. So that's pretty much my prediction. So this is my tier list prediction. You can always let me know in the comment section below what you think about this prediction. This is also tiered. So for me, the best A tier spec for me, this is Retribution. The best A tier spec ranged DPS is Devastation, for example. B tier spec, I mean, is Devastation. And the best healer spec, for example, for the S tiers are for me Resto Druid. So again, Thank you for watching this video. I really appreciate you. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't done that yet. I wanted to make a short video, but basically I didn't, so my excuses. I'm very excited coming into Dragonflight again for the mid-season, doing a lot of changes. I want them to make more and more changes. I'm not only excited because they buffed the classes that I play, I'm also excited because they also nerfed the specs that I play. I play Frost Decay, so they got nerfed on spell warding. I'm very excited about that. Retribution Paladin, I'm excited that they nerfed the burst, but they buffed the consistent damage. Again, I'm very happy with the current situation, how Blizzard actually is dealing with balancing changes, and I hope it will stay like this. I hope they will keep on building PvP and keep on building PvE as well with the balancing changes, and make the game very fresh every 2 weeks, every month, and make people just play and play and play. So thank you for watching this video. I really appreciate you. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't done it yet, and we will catch each other very soon in the next video. Have a great day. Bye.